We are here on our brew day, getting ready to brew a Saison. We slightly tweaked a recipe that we chose based on kind of the BJCP guidelines and what we were trying to accomplish with this brew. So real quickly, the grains, we already milled them, but I ended up having to go to two brew stores to get what we needed. We've got 6 pounds of Belgian Pilsner malt, which is our base malt, and 3 pounds of German Vienna, we couldn't get Belgian Vienna, and 1 pound of wheat. Chose yeast 3711, which is the French Saison yeast. We chose that just because there are a lot of options with the Belgian yeasts. And this one seems to be maybe slightly less finicky, which is something that they are known for. And we want to make sure that it attenuates down to under hopefully 1010 in order to get us the profile of the Saison that we're going for.
We don't have a great way of testing it, but going on records from the town website, seems to be a softer water. So what we've done is just had the water sitting out for a few hours, see if we can have some of the chlorine evaporate off of it, and that's it.
Run the Belgian Pilsner malt in first. The Vienna and the wheat. And Ryan is using his mash paddle to stir it up, try to just distribute all the water appropriately so that the temperature is as even throughout as it can be. Also trying to make sure that there's no dough balls, which is where some of it could clump together and obviously would be not productive for being able to access the sugars in the mash. So let him do that for a second. We can take a temperature reading, see where we're at. Again, we're trying to get down to around 148. We want to be under 150 for sure. That lower mash temp will allow us to extract more fermentable sugars, which will allow us to have a drier finish, which is part of the Saison style. So right now we are we're at like 146 and change, although this probe does not go very deep. You see that one. Alright, we can heat up like a half a gallon of water to get it up a little bit, but
We'll do that.
So we're at 148.6. So that's right where we want it. And we'll cap it up. Let it sit for 60, 75 minutes.
So now we're checking our mash here to be sure that we're fully converted.
No blue. No blue, we're good, right?
Yeah, good.
So So we can, just a minute here, we can start to boil off and sparge. Right now Ryan's hooking up a tube to dispense our sparge water, which we've heated up to about 170 degrees, and bring it over to the mash tun. We will boil off first, and then we can start to sparge with this. The sparging helps rinse the grains a little bit more, get any kind of more sugars out, but also stops the, I think it's the enzymatic conversion itself, so it locks in kind of our mash profile at that point too, which is important so that we're not still converting once we go to transfer for boil. Alright, so Ryan is doing the boil off now. Purpose of this is to kind of help settle the grain bed so that as we pull the wort out, it leaves behind some of the finer grain particles, I guess. So it's going to be a little bit cloudier in the beginning. We're going to want to run it really until the wort is coming out clear. And as we put it back in, we kind of just, I don't know if you can see, just going to run it along the side, just so it's not disrupting the grain bed and causing any tunnels or anything like that. And then we'll probably do at least one more, if not two more.
I'm not actually just to see where we stuck this guys here.
Trying to clarify the wort, but essentially we're trying to also trap some of the large proteins to help minimize boilovers once we start boiling. So. Alright, you want to swap out, Kevin? Alright, so we are running off into the boil kettle down here. We have our sparge water up here. This handy little sparge arm that will, we can get a video of it when it starts, but essentially will help kind of displace the water so again it's not dumping right on. And the idea here is to sparge at a consistent rate that we're pulling the wort out, so that there's always about a ½ inch to an inch or so of liquid on the top to help really rinse the grains and also to keep the grain bed intact properly. So
Probably that drain a little bit more before we start.
Yeah,
there.
right.
What do you think?
Yep, we let it drain a little bit more.
Do you remember what we're targeting for total volume?
That's a great question. I think we're targeting roughly 7 gallons.
Okay.
6.5 to 7 gallons for total volume into the boil kettle right now, to account for evaporation during boil. Okay.
So it's still sitting around 140. We got just under 8 gallons. Alright, bring that up to boil.
Yeah.
So it's coming in at 1040, but it's 124 degrees right now, so there's a handy little calculator on the Brewer's Friend. So when we put in that temperature at 1040, room temperature, which is typically how these are calculated, puts us at 1050, which is exactly where the Beersmith recipe calculator has us for this recipe. So we're right where we need to be, and we're trying to get our original gravity at the end of boil to, it looks like 1044 to 1046. So yeah. Ryan has got an ounce of East Kent Goldings at about 6.1% alpha acid content. So those are our bittering. That's our bittering addition. So it's going in, and technically that starts our countdown for our boil at 60 minutes. We have a nice rolling boil going now, which is obviously important for several reasons. It sterilizes the wort, kills any remaining enzymes as far as from the starch conversion. It clarifies. It's necessary to coagulate proteins, and yeah, well, it's beautiful. It smells great. Alright, so we're doing our next hop addition. This is at 15 minutes left in the boil. We've got a ½ ounce of the East Kent Goldings that we use for bittering, as well as a ½ ounce of Styrian Goldings, also now known as Styrian Celia. And these are more on the flavor aroma side because it's only 15 minutes left. We've had a nice rolling boil going the whole time, which again is pertinent for not only driving off DMS, but also for the evaporation. We put in, I think it was 7.75 gallons, and we're expecting to condense that down to probably 6.5 and get about 6 or close to 6 into the fermenter by the time we're done. So yeah.
Alright, we're rolling.
Alright, so a couple things. So we are recirculating the wort to create a whirlpool. You can see the
whirlpool starting right now. And this will also be the start of our cooling process right now as well, and we'll get the immersion chiller.
Running cold water through to help cool down the wort. The sooner the better, to prevent contamination. The whirlpool will also help cool it, as well as
Oh, sorry, I gotta go turn that water on.
sure, as well as kind of trap some of the trube and everything in there. Chilling as quickly as possible also helps with the cold break. So we're hoping to get this cooled down to around 70 to 72 degrees for pitching, and we're hoping that takes within 30 minutes. So we'll see how we do with that, and hopefully it goes smoothly. We're worried about being able to shake this thing to oxygenate it, but I'd say that
gonna be good.
flowing pretty good is going to do enough. Because we want to make sure that this the yeast is able to attenuate pretty low, we do want to make sure that between the yeast starter that we did, which we'll show you momentarily, and getting enough oxygen, that the yeast are very happy and healthy, so that they can do their job and get this thing to finished gravity that we need. We're at about 3 gallons right now, 3.5 maybe. Also, we didn't put a lot of hops in here, and we used a hop basket. Also, Ryan was diligent about scooping off a lot of the proteins that had floated to the top, so there actually really was not much in there. If you look at the bazooka tube, I mean, there's not.
Right. Pretty cool.
We have a starter going. We did use the yeast strain that we chose was a liquid yeast. So Ryan boiled up some dry malt extract last night and pitched the yeast into that so that it had a chance to start to reproduce a little bit, so it's a little bit healthier and stronger when we pitch it in now. So we'll take it off. It's basically just got a little stir bar in it that rotates to keep the yeast in suspension and active. So put a magnet on it to keep the stir bar from falling in.
Okay. Now, Jeremy, are we pitching this whole starter in here?
Yeah, I mean, I guess with the recipe, did we calculate if that's, I mean, it's 1,500 milliliters, which I think is relatively standard for
Yeah.
5-gallon batch. I mean, usually the amount of gravity from the dry malt extract is like 1040, so shouldn't have much impact or any impact on our beer. So now we're gonna seal it up and stick it in the little fermentation chamber that Ryan's got here and let it do its thing.
it settle for a bit before we check it out.
Okay, now we'll move the fermenter into the chamber. We have temperature control on here. So I'll drop it. Okay. We have a thermometer to keep a constant temperature. Go right inside the fermenter here.
So really what we're doing here is, since active fermentation should kick in soon, that's when potentially a lot of krausen will rise up, and so we have a blow-off tube so that if it gets a little bit too much, it doesn't literally blow off the airlock and cap there. So it'll just kind of empty into this sanitized gallon, and once primary fermentation is done, we can take that out and just leave the airlock on. So
Close it up.
we have our final gravity reading here, or I should say our final original gravity, so post-boil original gravity, and it came in at 1044, which is exactly where our brewing software told us we would be. Interestingly enough, it was way different and unexpected from what we got as our pre-boil gravity, and this number is accurate, so we can only imagine that the pre-boil gravity was off a bit. The other thing we can think of is that the way that we had collected the first and second runnings from the strike water to the sparge water, is that the way that we collected it, we might have collected more first runnings wort, which would have been a higher concentration, and that kind of threw off what our pre-boil gravity was. But either way, we hit the number that we were expecting to hit, which means we had the proper amount of boil off and extraction from our mash.